I am a YouTuber no more. Wait, what am I doing? I can't just throw away my YouTube channel? That would be very irresponsible. Welcome to How Hard Could It Be, where I talk about a cartoon and then tell you about some of my challenges in the process. So in doing research for Spider Month this year, I decided to get caught up on some of the various series that I haven't seen yet. One of them is the 2017 Spider-Man cartoon, and I really enjoyed it. I want to talk about it. I wouldn't call this a review so much as I'd call it a message of enjoyment. Also, spoilers, but I hope you'll watch this series anyways, whether it's before you watch this or afterwards. So, the first episode is basically the whole origin story, and it's as serviceable as any other version of the story. I like that there's seemingly no chosen one element to it at all. In fact, there's this whole monologue bit about chance and a whole host of factors resulting in him being bitten. From there, Peter gets into Horizon High, and I'm pretty fond of this choice. I enjoy the elements the school brings into this version of the characters as it introduces Miles, Gwen, and Anya, as well as Octavius, who starts out as a genius teacher at this high-tech school. This version of Peter really gets to play with science and, well, science fiction, really. Spider-Man gets nice and quippy as the season progresses. We get to see even more spider people join the fray as Miles gets bitten by another of the spiders who are part of a larger experiment. Well, not so much experiment as a master plan. There's a few episodes of Peter training Miles, and it's a lot of fun. There's a couple of episodes revolving around Venom, and Peter even winds up being unmasked. But Miles is able to protect his identity by donning a traditional Spidey costume himself. A clever solution, if I do say so myself. The entire first season culminates in Spider Island, where everyone gets spider powers, then get turned into mind-controlled spider monster soldiers for the Jackal, a classic Spider-Man villain who is a part of the Clone Saga in the comics. This story arc winds up introducing us to Spider-Gwen, who later becomes Ghost Spider, and even Anya gets spider powers, later leading to her becoming Spider-Girl in the next season. I think this is a fantastic arc, as they all do their best to squash the Jackal's plan and wind up saving the day, but ruining Peter and Harry's relationship. Peter reveals his identity to Harry so that he can save Norman, and then blowing up Osborn Tower to save the whole city.
I could have been the hero this time! You couldn't stand that, could you?
As the season winds down to its close, we get the Hobgoblin story, where Harry becomes a new hero. His supposedly ailing father yoinks some armor for his own with Spider-Man while gaslighting his own son into thinking that Harry is the one doing it. This winds up blowing up in Norman's face, though. Literally. The next season has an even more interesting couple of stories. Anya officially takes on the mantle of Spider-Girl as she lets on that she wasn't completely cured of her spider powers from the last season, and Gwen regains her powers from some magical doodad that she gets shot with. As the season progresses, we actually get an adaptation of the Superior Spider-Man, where Octavius puts his brain into Spider-Man's. I was absolutely floored when I realized what they were doing. At first I thought, they wouldn't go through with it. No way, they don't have the cojones to do this. There's no way they're going to go through with it. Even if it's just temporary, there's no way they... And then, they did it. The Mad Lads did it.
Wait. You can't just drop Ock stole my body while my mind lived in a computer and not expect me to have questions.
And then the way it resolves is just, it's so good.
So good.
I'm honestly surprised with how good it turned out, with Venom sniffing out the difference, and Octavius allowing Peter to take his body back, and then Peter rushing the Octobot back to Octavius' body to save him. It was such a stunning experience, and then Octavius actually stays a good guy for the rest of the season. The only thing I wish they'd have done was the scene where Octavius almost one-punches Scorpion with his spider strength and realizes how much Spider-Man is always holding back. missed opportunity, but still, this arc was really well handled. Finally, the Goblin Arc at the end of this season where everyone has to come together and fight the Goblin Nation. This 4-part arc is so good, the way everyone comes together. The writers and animators bring back a bunch of villains for the finale. Spider-Man, Spidey, which is what they wind up calling Miles Morales, Ghost Spider and Spider-Girl, Harry as the Hobgoblin, and Otto Octavius. The way the characters interact due to the various complications resulting from Octavius' past and his temporary control over Peter Parker is simultaneously riveting and kind of heartbreaking. Then the last episode happens and it wraps everything up really well for the season. And I cried at the end. It really hit me like a truck. It's really good. So you might ask why I enjoy this series so much. First off, I always enjoy more Spider-Man. The unique things new adaptations bring to the table are always fascinating. The way they change up various parts of the formula and make it their own. I think Horizon High as an added element is a lot of fun, as well as their manufactured rivalry with Oz Academy. It brings out new story elements and more story opportunities for Peter to mess up, because honestly that's what often happens with Spider-Man. Peter's inability to handle the hectic double lifestyle is one of the key aspects of his story, and this adaptation does a lot with it. It's even a very important factor in the lead up to Octavius' takeover of Spider-Man, as Peter struggles with completing a project and a constant onslaught of his greatest foes. The way the series has been written is so much fun in that aspect, because now the stakes are even higher. Normal high school? Sure, that's a big deal for getting into college, I guess. But flunking out of a private esteemed institution centered around one of Peter's greatest loves that he's even taking a part-time job with a school for, I think that raises the stakes more than a little bit. On top of that, Max Modell is a great mentor to Peter, and it just crushes me when Otto pisses off Modell, and the disappointment expressed towards the actual Peter later on in the series. Oh, my poor sweet boy. Oh man. And Spider-Man. The quips are good. Just the right amount of pun and cringe. The various Spider editions in this series are fantastic as well. Sure, Spidey is more often than not a solo act in a lot of his other outings, and this series holds to that. Yes, he works with others more often here than in other series, although certainly far less than in Ultimate Spider-Man. But he still has a lot of time to himself. Spidey, Ghost Spider, and Spider-Girl don't share the same lifestyle that Spider-Man does. They're almost hobbyists in comparison to Spider-Man's dedication to superheroing. His spider friends may also be as smart or even smarter than him, but he's always kind of at the head of the pack. Hell, there are many moments where his friends are solving problems completely without Spider-Man as conflicts arrive. I think it's great that Spider-Man can inspire his friends to do good. Hell, at the beginning of the Spider Island arc, regular civilians with spider powers come to help the crew, and they say it's due to Spider-Man inspiring them.
Now that we have powers too, it's time we paid you back.
I love that. I love that we get this scene with Spider-Man lifting a heavy thing and inspiring himself through Uncle Ben's teachings. Classic comic moment. And then going through the Superior Spider-Man arc, Octavius and Peter learn from each other's paths, and it really says a lot about nature versus nurture without ever saying it. These two geniuses, the reason they are so different is who they had as father figures. The way Uncle Ben's teachings affect Otto is so touching. His realization that his quest for pure power was always ill-fated was handled so well, if you ask me. Otto is portrayed as a smart man who actually sees a different way, a different motivation for people, and he actually changes his mind and lets go of his arrogance in favor of humility. It's so good. I also think it's really moving how everyone lets Otto into their lives despite everything he's done. He doesn't just get a second chance, but a third chance, and he doesn't squander it this time. And it's all thanks to Spider-Man. When it comes to non-story aspects of the show, things like animation, sound design, voice acting, I think it's all pretty good. Keeping in mind that I mostly watched it on my phone with either phone audio or my Raycons, I didn't really notice anything wrong with it. I've heard someone or another say the animation is bad, and I just don't see it. I mean, not everything has to be Castlevania levels of quality, and for a weekly or whatever kids cartoon show, I think this had a decent level of quality. The voice acting is fantastic though. There are parts in the story where you can hear the actors' voices wavering, and emotion they bring to their roles is great. Especially Harry, who probably has the most emotionally tumultuous experience of all the characters.
Go away! You got what you wanted!
I mean, no other character has their dad die not once, but twice. Here's the thing I'll say though. When it comes to animation quality, it's second to how the story plays out. In this case, the story far outweighs whatever the animation quality is, and it kept me hooked. It was never an obligation for me to watch, and I never wanted to just put it down and watch something else. Hell, half the time I didn't even want to look at anything else. Overall, as a Spider-Man story, what would I judge it as? I think it might be a new favorite. It's definitely better than I thought it would be. I'm looking forward to season 3 whenever that pops up on Disney+. I don't have cable. With a whole TV series, counting cost of admission moments is pretty difficult. I mean, some episodes don't have one, some have several, and sometimes an entire episode is just fun-tastic. Now, when it comes to challenges, sometimes they're not all with technique, unexpected hardships, or software troubles. Sometimes they're matters of certainty and resolve. It's been an embarrassing couple of months in that regard. Honestly, it's really hard to keep going with this sometimes. I think the most frustrating part isn't raw views. I'm not too worried about that. It's more just the watch percentage. It feels very disheartening to see such a sharp viewer drop-offs in the first minute or less. I don't say this to complain. Nobody owes me anything in this regard. It's just frustrating for me to put in all of this effort and have only 1 or 2 of the people that actually click on the video to actually get through the bulk of it. And to those that do, thank you. You know, it's funny. There was actually an episode of this show that got through to me on this end. That whole Screwball episode, it was pretty good. And it really kind of like, it eased my anxieties a little bit. And then of course there was that bit with Spidey lifting the big thing and saving the bus. And that kind of helped too. Sometimes it's all about watching the right thing at the right time that it can keep you going. Especially when your brain is doing whack shit to you. I mean, to all the people that talk to me during this time and try to reassure me or push me to keep going or whatever, I appreciate that, but you know, sometimes it's hard to convince the old noggin. Anyways, now that I'm done showing you all the heart on my sleeve, sling some webs, fight your best friend, recruit an enemy, and never stop saving the day. With great power comes great responsibility.